Greetings, friends. I got another episode here today, Modern Gamer Dan. This is a very special one. I keep telling you I'm going to have a very special one. I never do it. Finally, today is the day. So I've got a good one. It's going to be a bit longer than normal, obviously, but it's, as you can see the title, it's about video games and if they're bad for your kids, and if they promote gun violence, if they rot your kids' brains, blah blah blah. So before. Yeah, so let's just start to it, alright? Let's get to it. Alright, now, are video games bad for your kids? Before I start, I don't want people to think I'm trying to tell them how to raise their kids, or in fact, it's actually far from it. What I would like to promote in this video is the common myth that video games are bad for your kids, and that makes them violent and rust their brains and all that kind of stuff. Instead of parents doing research and finding out for themselves that this is true, the media tends to fend off this fear, and whatever the media says is right, of course. Well, very, very wrong. I'm not saying media is always wrong, but I'm sure you know, and I am not a conspiracy theorist at all. I know with them everything's a conspiracy, but this is one of those things where basically. I mean, first of all, I'm not going to get into all the studies that have been done because I could say anything. I could say a study's been done that you have to play video games no matter what. That's not what I'm saying either. What I'm trying to say is do your own research, and I'm going to go through this kind of list that I have here, and it's basically going to mention that my opinions and also what I can see in the world. So, is it beneficial? Is it not? At what point do people actually think of the children?
Please think of the children!
Let's start with the notion that video games are bad for kids, that they lead to obesity and laziness. Let's look at a child who sits in front of the TV after school one day. He sits there and plays video games until his parents gets home. Basically, yeah, so, he sits there, he's not supervised. He eats snacks, constantly eating snacks. He has to wait till, I'm sure a lot of you have had it where you have to wait for your parents to get home because you get home before. And this is the 13, 14, I'm not saying younger or old. They eat snacks, they play video games, wait for their parents to get home. They don't always do video. Some of them do their homework and this and that, but the majority of them don't. While he waits unsupervised, kid gains weight, right? He eats, he gains weight. Parents finally see this, they say, oh, geez, video games are bad because he's sitting there not exercising and playing video games means he's getting fat. Has nothing to do with the snacks that he's eating, nothing to do with all the sugar that he's got into his system. Has nothing to do with that. It's more the video games is the problem, right? Obviously, it's got to be the video games because it's definitely not anything that I'm buying for him, which is obviously completely wrong because it actually is the sugar. It has nothing to do with the video games. It's all about eating all that junk food. There's nothing to do with they like to play the video games and they sit there and they play, but they could watch TV, do the exact same thing. Reading a book, you don't move around, sitting eating snacks. But people love books and they think books, and they are. Don't get me wrong, books are great, but they think books are fine. You can read a book for 4 hours, but you can't play a video game for 4 hours because that's different. That's completely different. That makes you fat. The book doesn't. No, it's about getting out there. It's about, and again, this is where I'm going to get to a big point. And what I want to get to is, so what? Who do you normally blame? You have to blame the sugar, all the sugar that they're eating.
Melting! Oh, what a world!
And that's another problem that I don't get why people don't see. And I know it's hard because I know my kids would rather do anything than eat healthy foods. But you have to, unfortunately, as a parent, you have to kind of force it on them. Some kids do like it. I've heard of some kids, they'd rather fruit, and I wish my kids were like that. They're not. And that's not the case sometimes. It's just not the case. Some kids just don't like it. They want to eat the gummy bears. They want to eat the candy. It tastes a lot better. Now, why trust me? Why say, hey, well, this guy knows? I don't know anything. I'm not a scientist. I'm not a doctor. I've done very little research on this, but what I do know is I have 4 kids. Not a single one of them is overweight, and they all play video games. Why? because I tell them, get out. I don't let them sit there for too long. Get out, go play outside. And you know what? They love playing outside. In fact, most of the time they'd rather play outside than play video games. But if they've been outside all day, there's nothing wrong with having them play. And that's actually beneficial for them to play video games. I play them with them. Sometimes I'll play outside with them. Sometimes I'll play in here with them. But where am I getting all my my information from? I'm getting it all from where you can get it from, and that's Google. And that's another thing I want to point out. Just go ahead and look up Google. Look at all this information for yourself. There's a ton of articles on this. There's a million articles that you can look at. Some bad. Some say it's bad. Some say it's good. But you have to read them and come out to your own conclusions. I'm not saying how to run your life. If that's what you want to do, then do it. I can't stop you. But I don't want you to sit there and say, well, video games are bad. If you have your own opinions, that's fine. I have my opinion. But don't just go and say, well, they're absolutely bad. If you do that for your kid, then you're stupid. You're an idiot. Why are you doing that for your kid? Which is, I don't see how you can, first of all, I don't see how you can come to that conclusion, but I also don't see that. Now, there are other problems. There's genetics. There's, certain illnesses that kids have that are obese and they can't control. That's a completely different story. That's a whole other story. I'm not talking about those kids, but I always monitor my kids to make sure, first of all, the snacks, you set a time and a date that they can have their snacks, and the biggest thing that you can tell them, the biggest thing you can do for your kids, is what I like to say, and this is for everything in life almost, alcohol, anything, it's moderation. It's all about moderation. And I just don't get why people think, or I'm not saying all people, I don't want to generalize, but why society thinks that it's okay to just blame one thing and to keep eating those snacks. Well, you know what? Actually, I can tell you why. Because it's sugar. I'm not going to go, again, I want to go into conspiracy sugar. The sugar companies are bad and this and that. They're trying to make money. That's all they care about. So they don't want a bad image. They don't want them to think that sugar is the cause of all obesity. But multiple studies say that it is. Unfortunately, it sucks. I love sugar. It's fantastic. Sugar is amazing. I'm going to leave also. By the way, I'm going to leave a YouTube link. It's a TED Talks about video games and this and that. I'm going to leave that in the description just to let you guys know. So go take a look at that. That's a really good. That's a good watch. So what do you think is a real problem? And I've already said this. Sugar is a real problem here when it comes to obesity, especially. Sugar is the enemy. So basically, sugar is the enemy here. Although yes, tastes great, but not only just the obesity. There's a long list of medical problems that it can cause. I'm not going to list them all because again, just look it up. I think it's kidney disease. It leads to all sorts of problems, diabetes. There's a couple people I know that have diabetes, and I don't know. I'm not saying that's from sugar. Some of them, it's actually they were born with it, which is not their fault. But and you know what? Of course, to the time I can't remember which type is which. If I can remember, I think type 2 is the one that you can get from sugar. I don't know. I could be wrong. Correct me if I'm wrong. But that's one of the other bigger problems to me. Now, that leads me to another problem, another medical condition that apparently it causes kids is them to be violent. And now with everything that's gone off with Sandy Hook and especially in the States, it's the only in the States. It causes them, obviously, video games causes them to be violent. Sorry for all the Simpsons clips. Seasons 3 to 9 are just too good. I gotta use them, and they're on my brain. For some reason, that sticks in my head, but not, important things, But anyways, having said that, so why does society blame video games for all the recent gun violence? My theory is, again, this is my theory. Let me step back a second, because it's really just the USA. I know there's some Americans on here, but it's mainly, unfortunately, a USA problem, really, because if you look at all the stats, Canada, Australia, the UK, all the modern non-third world societies don't really have a, especially especially a gun violence problem, especially in schools. It's non-existent. I've heard of it maybe once or twice, in the past 30 years here in Canada, and I'm pretty sure if I'm not mistaken, sometime in the 1970s in Australia was the last time. Could have been 80s. Again, could correct me. I didn't research that part. I'm kind of winging it, and I have some notes here, guys. So I'm kind of doing a little bit of both. And then you got USA, which happens unfortunately almost every week. You're getting every week to every 2 weeks. It's almost like just when I hear of it, I'm like, yeah, there it is. There's another one. There's got to be something done at some point. Anyways, that's a whole other story. Sorry, I'm getting off topic there. Clearly, it's disheartening, but clearly, guns is not the problem, right? It's the video game. That's what society thinks. It's not the guns. It has nothing to do with it. It's the video game. The video games are making these kids run into the schools and kill all these innocent other kids. They're most of the time they're kids. I'm sorry, 18 I consider still a kid. Sorry, I have a daughter that's 17, but I'm sorry, but I still consider him a kid. But anyways, and then Americans think, oh well, geez, so it's video games because only American kids play video games, right? Am I wrong here? It's only American. No other society does. Pretty sure all of Europe, I mean all of the world, they play video games. Canada for sure. I played video games my whole life. So first you have to look, and you also have to look at the types of games you're playing. Not all games are violent. Most games are based on strategy and doing what's right, and just as movies and TV series are. It's just another form of entertainment. Do you think there's any difference between a kid watching a movie where somebody gets his head blown off, or blowing off somebody's head with a gun, a fake gun, on a video game? I don't see any difference in that. So then they can't watch anything with guns then. That means ever. The problem there you have is that they have to understand the difference, right? That's the problem. Teach them the difference. Sit down with them and explain to them. Instead of blaming, say, well, it's video games, get rid of your video games, because that's going to cause a problem with the kid. Sit down and talk to them and say, listen, little Jimmy, this is the problem, okay? This is not real. You understand this, right? This is just make-believe. This is not real. And most of the time the kids are like, yeah, I know. I know it's not real. It's a video game, Dad, Mom, whatever. No, it's not real. So that's another thing. There's also so many benefits, and I'm going to leave some more stuff here for you guys. Again, I don't want you guys to, I would rather you guys do your own research, because if I throw stuff at you, it doesn't work. I find people look at it and go, yeah, whatever, that article's stupid. Look it up yourself, please. I really just type in on Google, look it up, go to whatever website you want to, and tell me that video games are the cause of all this violence that's going on. Anyways, I'm going to stop ranting about that part. One of the best things about video games has been shown about better reflexes, better coordination, better reaction time, which often means better drivers. And we all know we could use better drivers, that's for sure. See? Look, Family Guy cut away. Not all Simpsons. So what's the point of all this? One is just, I hope parents would do some research and realize what is right and what is wrong. Don't listen to the gun politicians that blame video games for all the gun violence, or the parents that haven't played a video game their whole life, and they blame video games because they'd rather blame something rather than themselves. And I'm not trying to be mean here. I'm just saying that sometimes the parents have to take it into their own hands. So you know what? Maybe I'm not spending enough time with my kid. Maybe I need to start. And I'm not saying they're bad parents, because a lot of times they're not. I'm not saying they're bad, but sometimes maybe you got to change it. Change the way you think. Maybe I need to do something about this instead of blaming something else. I'm going to leave you with one last clip. It's a quick, interesting recap on how video games affect the brain. It's actually really kind of a little interesting. It's a little more sciencey, because honestly, I'm obviously not a scientist. I play one on TV, but other than that, I definitely would like to show you guys. This is a little interesting clip on it. So, anyways, guys, hopefully, again, like to subscribe, please, if you like this stuff. I'm going to try to do more stuff like this that's more interesting, that gets your brain going. More of my stuff like this. So this is one of my most ambitious things. I don't have a lot of time on my hands, so even though it doesn't seem like I did much, I had to spend a lot of time doing my own research on some of these topics. So I hope you can please like. The more likes, the more I get excited, the more I want to do. So please share, like, whatever you want to do. You'll see the little tabs here somewhere. Up here, usually I put them up here and here. Yeah. These two sides, maybe down here too, or down here. And yeah, all right, guys, we'll see you later.